Hi, and welcome back to another edition of Inside Great Lakes Sailing. My name is Greg Norman, your host. I think we've got one of the better shows we've done in a while. We're going to catch up with some old friends and actually talk to a new one of the best sailors in the world, Paul Goodison. Talked to us from Lake Como, Italy. Did that yesterday. We get a chance to talk to him a little bit about last year's America's Cup in Barcelona. He also is being welcomed back to the GL52 fleet on Heartbreaker, Robert Hughes's boat. It will be a great addition to what is becoming one of the best fleets in the world. Get a chance to cover them extensively. We're going to talk a little bit about the 52s, a little bit about the Olympics, and certainly cover what happened in Barcelona. I think that'll be a great conversation. We also get to check in with Trey Sheehan. Trey was just honored as the ILYA 2024 Sailor of the Year. If you're not familiar with him, he's got a variety of boats. But we're going to talk a little bit about Hooligan. This is a little bit about GL52s. Trey is one of the nicer guys you'd ever want to meet in sailing, and we have a really good conversation. The last guy we're going to have a chance to spend some time with is we're checking in with Scott Herman. Everything you need to know about autistic sailing and helping children for free get on a boat, and a program that we started talking to him about 4 years ago. We're making a check back in for the first time in a couple of years. They've already done 4 shows. They're going to do 12 nationally, and we've got the schedule for that. I think it'll be a real fun opportunity. We were going to bring you a little bit of features, but having a chance to spend some time with Paul Goodison was, I think, terrific. And starting next week, we'll get Wally Cross back, and we'll get all the folks and all the features that bring Inside Great Lakes Sailing to you. So up next is Paul Goodison. We'll be back in a second, and hope you enjoy the show.
Smiles are powerful. They spread joy, laughter, and hope. But not everyone gets a fair chance at a smile. Every 3 minutes, a baby is born with a cleft, making it difficult to talk, hear, eat, and even breathe. In America, most children with clefts receive immediate care, but others around the world may never have access to the surgery they need to thrive. Smile Train is changing that. As the world's largest cleft charity, our sustainable model has sponsored more than 1.5 million smiles. We offer training and financial support to local medical professionals so they can provide life-changing surgery and other essential services at no cost to families.
It's wonderful to see these children, to hear the difference that we make. And for me, being born with a cleft lip and palate, knowing what they went through is so life-changing for me. They're not just helping a child, but they're helping a family, a community.
Help us change the world one smile at a time.
Welcome back. We're talking with probably one of the top 3 or 4 sailors in the world, Paul Goodison. And Paul is in Italy as we speak, working on some Moth activity and coming back to the Great Lakes for the GL52 series this coming summer. The one question I wanted to ask, and it was a question we asked the first time they sailed GP was in Chicago. Saltwater, freshwater, the viscosity is, they figured out the sailing part of it, but it's got to be easier for you sailing in freshwater than it does in that saltwater.
I think that just the biggest benefit is washing it all off at the end of the day is obviously a little bit easier when you're in the fresh water. But it does make surprisingly it is a little different to the buoyancy, how much you float and a little bit how you perform. But it's they're tiny differences.
Is there a tiny difference then from foil to monohull or any kind of a regular sailboat, or is it about the same?
I think it is probably similar between the both.
You've had some experience with Bob Hughes' Heartbreaker, obviously in the Great Lake Fleet, and you're coming back this summer. What is it you like about those boats?
Oh, I think the Great Lakes circuit in general is just is an awesome class to go sailing. I think the way it stands out probably a little different from the 52s in the Super Series, that it's a little bit more open. All the teams probably spend a little bit more time together. They're shared debriefs. It's a much more of a, I guess, a sort of family atmosphere there where everybody's involved, everybody hangs around a little bit at the sailing club and chats to each other, whereas in some of the other stuff everybody disappears off for their own individual debriefs. So it's a really nice atmosphere, and a bunch of good friends I have there amongst the different boats.
We've been on them a number of times, and just the awesome power from a mono cruising boat that I sail all the time. You get on something like that on the back of that boat and you recognize just how the loads and all the other, the mechanics that go with the physics of that boat are just pretty amazing.
Yeah, no, the 52s are amazing boats to sail. I think they're really rewarding as well when you get it right, just to feel how well the boat can go. And with so many boats in the fleet growing up there in the lakes, it's the racing's going to be awesome, and it's something I'm really looking forward to.
Okay. You grew up in Sheffield. You started on a local reservoir. How does the guy get from the reservoir to the levels of height that you got to? Does a family sail when you grew up?
Yeah, my dad was a real passionate sailor, just a dinghy sailor on a small lake in the middle of England, and it was kind of from there I used to split the roles between my brother of sailing with him, and we were always nagging and asking for a small boat. So in the end, we got a little plastic topper that we stole from my mum, and we'd go splashing around in the lake, and then from there it was more of, for me, it was a way to get away and to see the world. Like, there's some amazing opportunities and some amazing people in the British sailing camp at that time, and you had to achieve a certain level to go on to do international regattas, and it was almost a passion for escaping away with all my buddies to go and see new places that drove the motivation initially.
When did you know you were good?
That's a tricky one. I always thought, probably at a young 15, 16, when I was sailing against some of the older guys, that maybe there was something there for me if I focus a little bit harder. But back in those days, it was all about having fun, and I think that's what I look back onto my sailing in the early stages of the career, was just how much fun I had with my brother and with other friends, kind of just messing about, and the traveling, which I really enjoyed.
When did you figure out you could make a living at it? That's a really different question.
Probably not until after I won a gold medal. It's amazing how much the Olympic campaigns cost, but it's also a thing that the more support you receive, the better program you're able to run. So you don't make much of a living doing the Olympic side, and it's more driven from just a drive and a passion to try and win, and everything you have available at your disposal, you kind of throw at the program and hope that it'll work out. But then after that, you've got to think, I need to make a living out of this now.
As you got more successful, you had a training partner, and obviously Ben Ainsley, and he's obviously at one of the best in the world. Does that, working with a guy like that as a training partner, does that hone the skills a little bit to recognize just about where you want to go with the sport?
The biggest thing for me and Ben, when I was his training partner in the early days for Sydney, was you just get a great inside look about what it takes to win, and from those experiences you learn so much, and you adjust the way you attack different situations, because you learn from people who are very successful at achieving those results.
I always ask this question of anybody that wins a gold medal for their country. It's, you win all kinds of, we'll talk a little bit about your Moth championships. I have to think that the gold medal for your country is a little different opportunity, a little more, swells the heart a little bit more, I would think. Is that fair?
Yeah, no, for sure. Like, representing your nation at the Olympics is something, as a kid, you watch TV, you never believe that it could be you. I always watched the track and field and some of the other Olympic disciplines, and thought these people were just superhuman, and it was never going to be something that's achievable kind of by a normal person. So to have the opportunity to go to the Olympics and to have the opportunity to win was something that's amazingly special, and still makes me smile when we talk and think about it now.
Is a gold medal worth a lifetime of opportunity?
It probably is until you've got one. so yeah, no, it's an amazing thing to do. It
opens doors, I would think.
No, for sure, it does. It's a stepping stone into the America's Cup, and it's again something that I watched on TV at a young age and was like, wow, this is incredible. How I'd love to do that, but again, you never can connect sailing a plastic boat that's only 12 foot long on a lake to going and sailing these amazing machines that are sailed now in the Cup.
I want to talk about the big boat stuff, but obviously a great success as a laser sailor, world champion, and then obviously go into foiling with the Moth. Where was the transition, and how did you go from one to the other?
I think at the time, It was foiling was just on the up, and from sailing a laser for so long, it's incredible that you step away from the laser for a couple of weeks, and then you come back into it, and you're like, wow, I'm at the plateau of my learning curve, and you're just striving to get back almost to the standard you were a month ago, and then it takes a lot of work to get slightly above that. So it was it's very rewarding, but very difficult to make those tiny little gains in a laser. Whereas I had the opportunity to go and or try a Moth and do some foiling, and it was incredible that it just opened up another dimension. Like the learning curve was so steep, it was so rewarding, the speeds were exhilarating, and it was just like a new challenge that was super, super exciting, having sailed a boat that goes 5 knots to be able to jump in on your second day and do 25 knots. It's quite appealing.
I would think that going 25 has that advantage. Is it harder to learn foil in your mind? I asked this question. Is the future headed towards foiling? Because anybody that's got a syndicate, whether it's Sail GP or anybody else, they're obviously trying to push the foil boats. Is junior sailing, is foil the future? Or is it just another part of sailing?
I think as a youngster, I can imagine you look at these boats and you go, wow, I want to sail that. I have a 5-year-old, and he's booked in to do some sailing this summer here in Garda, and he's like, Papa, I want to go on your flying boat. It's like, no, you're going to go Optimist sailing. It's like, I don't want to do that. I want to go on the flying boat. So right. I can see how the younger generation, it's appealing for the newcomers, but I still love the classic sailing. I still love being in the water as well. Like I find it really interesting and rewarding to the tactical game of the slower keel boats or the dinghies that aren't flying. But on the other hand, I love the exhilaration of the foiling and going fast and the super fast decision making, as opposed to the longer term, slower decision making that you pay for heavily if you get wrong for a longer period. So going forward, I think this both have a huge part in the sport, and I don't think one can cope without the other. And also, I think as a youth growing up today, you want to be able to be good at both, because some of the skills that you learn in the slower boats is so transferable, and some of the guys that maybe don't do the slower, more tactical sailing maybe miss a little bit of the learning if they just get straight into foiling.
We always have this crazy out conversation as we're looking at new boats for junior sailing in our program, that you buy a couple of 420s or you buy a foil. The problem is we figured that if we bought a foil, all the adults would want to use it and probably trash it to go back to the kids, and it's a different discussion. You learn tactics from the foil that maybe you didn't understand in a monohull or in a small plastic boat?
I think it's just very different. Like you look at the boundary format of racing. It's from normal boats that I call them, the classic boats that are not restrained by boundaries. It's definitely a different game than when you're restricted in a course size or a course area or with a reaching start. It's both have the things that are different, but it's good. It's just different, and you definitely have to learn one from the other. But quite often you'll find that some of the stuff transfers nicely from one to the other, and you can learn both ways.
I've heard from the best sailors in the world that the best guys start with small boats and learn the big boats. It's kind of not the other way around necessarily. When did you start to maybe get interested? Was the Olympic experience, as you mentioned earlier, the Olympic experience sort of a kind of a runner into the America's Cup process?
Yeah, it was. I think at the last campaign I was doing into London, I very much did quite a lot of keelboat sailing at the same time, and I thought that was a really nice crossover to the laser sailing, some of the fleet racing. But then after that, it was definitely more of a transition into the foiling, and you watch the America's Cup, and I think the coming from a laser, there's no development opportunities. So you're spending your whole time trying to squeeze these last 1 or 2% of performance out of the boat through what you do, not through your equipment. And then you look over at the Star Class at the time and how much time and money was spent on that, and it's intriguing. And I think that's something that the Moth opened the door for me. Like I didn't realize how interested and excited I could get by the development process using different equipment or fine tuning your equipment without being restricted by class rules as such to eke this extra performance. And then you go from kind of running your own program in a Moth to developing stuff to then having access or being part of an America's Cup team, which is an insane amount of computing power and an incredible amount of intelligent people. And you can learn so much just from wandering through the office and soaking it all up. And it was almost like going back to school. It's just such a amazing experience and able to learn so much every day.
A little later in the show, Troy Sheehan, who was the ILYA, which is Lake Erie, was the Sailor of the Year. And he's got a number of boats. He's a 52. He owns the boat Hooligan in the same series you're going to be sailing in. And I know you won a world championship in a Melgus 32 in 2012. And I asked him what boat he loved the most. And it was in turn the Melgus 32. And last year we had a chance to interview Harry. And he said the best boat he's ever built, at least in his own mind, is a Melgus 32. So that's kind of that traditional boat from small to large, right?
Yeah. It was. I love the 32. I think back in the day when I think the worlds we had 36, 37 boats amongst that, and having a boat that size and so many of them was incredible. The racing was super tight, and it was, again, it's a little bit of development in the sails, but the boats are pretty much one design. So there's not much you can do other than sail it better. And it was again a class I love to sail, and again it is a very good stepping stone from the dinghies up to the bigger boats and then up to the larger ones after that.
From the Olympics to America's Cup, do you have a favorite destination in terms of where you like to sail? And then the follow-up question is there a specific level you like the America's Cup more than the Olympics? What has been your favorite, or is it based on maybe your age and where you are in your life?
I loved our time in Auckland. I think it's such a special venue that gives you so many opportunities, especially when you're in a 75-foot foiling monohull that can travel at 50 knots. Like the number of different places you can go to sail, whether it's up in the back paddock, or you go out the other side of Rangitoto into some waves, or you're sailing in the channel. Like for me, it's an incredible place to sail because it has such a variety of different conditions on the same day you can go out and learn from. And also just the atmosphere in Auckland. Everybody loves sailing, everybody's into it, and that's definitely one of my favorite venues and one of the places I love to sail the most. But then from the types of boats, I love racing. I think growing up, it's the thing I got off on. I love to go racing, and like the Olympics stuff was so good because every couple of weeks you're at a different regatta and you're doing a lot of racing, a lot of training. Whereas the America's Cup is very different, whereas you do so little racing. So in a way, I enjoy the racing, but if I could race anything, it would probably be the 75s. Like the boats are just incredible, and to be at the cutting edge of technology and the most amazing sailing boats in the world is something that I feel very privileged to have had the opportunity to do.
Every time I see sailing news, I keep looking, your sailing world, I keep looking at what's the next big one. At some point, somebody's going to build 200-foot monohull, just any number of things. And you have had an experience in a lot of different races. Terry Hutchinson and Matt Cassidy were both on the show, and we had a chance to discuss a little bit of the flip in 21. And I don't want to get into the specifics about it. I think we've covered it pretty well. But were you amazed at how well New Zealand just sort of rallied to make sure that boat didn't sink at the time?
When the American Magic capsized, is that the... Yeah, no, it was...
you were part of the Titanic, right?
Yeah. I was on there when we flipped over, but the shore crew did, and all the team. It was like one of those special moments that I think we had a great team to start with. Don't get me wrong, but I think when you're faced with adversity, it really brings out the best in some people, and to be part of that team in that situation to get the boat back out in the water was a special 10 days at the base, just seeing the whole place electric with so much stuff going on, but also the help we got from the other teams from New Zealand helping us out, from Ineos and the other teams helping us with some resources where we need them to get it back on the water. I guess the only problem is we didn't have enough time. Unfortunately, we were straight into the semi-finals. We needed another couple of weeks really to get back up and on our feet. So it wasn't quite the fairy tale ending, but again, it was one of those very special moments that you get to share with a group that really builds a really tight knit group around it. And you look back and the result's very disappointing, but the time was very very nice to be part of.
You had three guys on that. Well, two guys on the boat. One obviously Matt was off the boat, but it was just interesting listening to the reaction. But if you look at the video and follow through it, they did a great job of just making sure that the boat didn't sink. I don't want to make a big deal, but I want to touch briefly on last year. You had obviously a difficult accident, you kind of fell in a hole, and it kind of took you out. Those are disappointing moments when you spend all this time training, certainly.
Yeah, tell me about it. Like the whole time you're there waiting to go racing, and we just started racing and starting to get to the meat of it all, and then it's all taken away. It was bitterly disappointing to be honest.
How long were you laid up?
Well, I probably couldn't move for 3 or 4 days properly with 5 broken ribs, and then I could kind of move around. I think the most painful part was going back to the doctors for the checkup. I think on day 5, when I think my wife found every speed bump in Barcelona that we managed to go over in the car, and every time we did, it was pretty painful. But it was tough for me not to be at the base around all the guys. So I think on day 6 or 7, I managed to get in the base, and then slowly tried to help where I could to support them to try and get the best out of it. But unfortunately, it wasn't to be.
Anybody that's ever had broken ribs, you're bouncing across the water. It's just got to be obviously very painful.
Yeah, no, it was strange. Like I was unconscious when I went down the hatch and came around, and it almost felt like an elephant was sitting on my chest, struggling to breathe, and I was quite panicked, to be honest.
For a little while, they reported that you weren't injured. You'd be back the next day. It just must have been a communication problem, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure kind of what was going on internally, whether there were some games being played about the selection for the semi-finals or whether I'd make a difference. I was just at home resting, to be honest, and leaving them to it. I
say that because it's like in football, there's always these you don't mention injuries, and it is what it is. But off we went. This is just a curious question in my brain. Do you have? Is the America's Cup gotten to be too expensive?
It's too expensive for me to play. I don't know. It's one of those things that I think in every America's Cup you want to do the best campaign you can, and this all costs money. I think if you look at just the production costs probably aren't that high for building a boat and putting it on the water. But if you involve the 100 plus people in a team that are required for day-to-day running and the development side and the engineering side, it is a crazy expensive game. But it has to be cutting edge to be at the forefront of the sport, and I think that's what's so special about it. So maybe it has got too expensive. It's really sad to hear the last couple of days that Ineos have pulled out and that the Red Bull team have pulled out, because the competition is better when there's more competitors. So it's a fine line you've got to tread between making it desirable for people or achievable for people to compete, and also being at the top cutting edge. And at the end of the day, it all comes down to the defender, how they want to play it and what their plans are, unfortunately. So you want to change that, you have to win.
I asked that question based on the fact that the guys chasing it are billionaires. And I also asked the question because you're starting to see some Saudi money, some of the live money that's gone into golf is now starting to sink into some of the syndicates. So it does become money, and if you can't afford it, obviously you're taking a step sideways. Last couple questions. You've been involved now. You're getting involved with the SailGP guys, and if I'm not mistaken, the Brazilians.
Yes, I'm involved with the Brazilian team at the moment. It's it's a super cool project with a nice group. Like you talk about the America's Cup of how tight knitted it all is and how individual it is. And you go to Sail GP, we have somebody from Team New Zealand, we have somebody from Ineos, we have American Magic representative, we have somebody from Prada there. It's pretty cool to have the opportunity to kind of look behind the curtains a little bit of some of the other syndicates, but also learn a lot from how different groups of people attack different situations. And it's been awesome to watch Martin's development at the helm.
The organizational part of SailGP, we've had a chance to go to San Francisco, New York, Chicago, and San Tropez. We've been a little bit involved in following them, and they are absolutely professional beyond belief. They've got everything is done well. I guess Larry Ellison knows how to put a program together, and I think they've done. It's also, is it challenging racing to you?
Yeah, I think the racing, like I said earlier, I think as sailors, we all love to go racing. And SailGP gives you an opportunity to do 12, 14 races every year. It's almost a shame there's not more days sailing and more races. I think what's been awesome this year is the running now an extra race each day, which means you were doing 4 on Saturday, 3 or 4 on Sunday, which is awesome because while we're there, why not get us racing? And the racing is fantastic. It's with so many boats around, there's so much going on. It's very different. Like I look at the America's Cup and it's about being absolutely perfect and trying to make 0 mistakes. And you have so much time to refine everything and practice that there's not really an excuse for it not being top level. Whereas you jump over to Sail GP and you get 1 training day and then you're into racing. So it's hard to catch up with some of the more experienced team, being a new team in, but being able to look at all the shared data and be able to watch everybody's onboard videos and comms. It's such a great opportunity to learn, and it's great to feel like you're on a really steep learning curve, getting better almost every minute you're sailing.
Last question, Paul. What do you love most about sailing?
I think it's just the freedom. Getting out on the water is exhilarating. Being out in nature, that's what makes it for me.
Pretty special. Listen, I appreciate your time. We look forward to seeing you this summer here in the Great Lakes. You certainly had a started mention to the lineup for all the folks, and have a safe trip coming back and what's left of the spring. And thanks for your time.
No problem. Thanks ever so much.
Wanted to thank Paul for spending some time with us to get us a chance to kind of tip his computer out to where he's staying in a villa over the top of Lake Como. It's one of the most beautiful places you ever want to see in your life. And a lot of folks who watch this show have spent time sailing there. So that was a really fun conversation. You may or may not know that we were the ones, and I say we, the Inside Great Lakes Sailing with Sail Anarchy, kind of broke the story last year when Paul was hurt. There was some intrepidation about saying whether he was going to sail the next day or not. We had a chance to kind of debunk that myth, and he addressed it. And I thought that was kind of cool to give us the answer to what might have been a pretty tough question. So up next, we're going to get a chance to spend some time talking to Trey Sheehan, and then obviously we'll have a little quick conversation with Scott Herman from Spectrum Sailing. So stay tuned. Welcome back. We're doing a few checkups of the 2025 season. We get a chance to spend some time talking with Scott Herman, who is the founder of Spectrum Sailing, one of our favorite programs. And Scott, from when we talked, I think 4 years ago to where you are now, we're going to talk about all of the stuff going on. But you've already had some camps, and you're going to do.
Oh yes, we're fully started for 2025. Thanks for having us back. Yes, we've grown a ton since you and I started talking, but this year in 2025, we're hosting 12 camps across the country. And for us to get that number of camps in, we have to start early. So we started programming this year in February out in Newport Beach, California. We've already had a bit of a swath through Florida. We've been in Jacksonville and Pensacola. And a week ago or so, we just wrapped up our Houston camp at Lakewood Yacht Club.
We're gonna post this up somewhere at this point, but Houston, Toledo, Chicago, Detroit, Holland, Michigan, Boston, Sarasota, and back in Charleston. So those are all, you need to apply. Some of the camps are already full. You need to apply below, make sure that that's taken care of. All that information, and we'll put that up to make sure that, so you've expanded, obviously, and it's got to be, when we've talked, this was a
an avocation. It looks like it's become a vocation.
Right. So, 4 years ago, we really, we were only running a program in Charleston just for the kids locally. And then we got a phone call from Corinthian Yacht Club in Chicago and said, "Hey, we love what you're doing. Could you bring it here?" And that really started our travel. That first year we were in Chicago as one of our original sites. We were in Charleston, and then we added Sarasota down at the Squadron and Sarasota Youth Sailing. Those have been sort of our original locations, and we've grown since then. Every year we've added a little bit, and we've continued to grow. Like I said, this year we'll be in 12 locations across the country. We'll have over 250 autistic kids sail with us this year. And just a reminder, all of our programming has been free from day one. We've never charged a family or the sailors for them to participate. So we're really excited about 2025 and hope we can continue to grow and get as many kids on the water as we can.
Yeah, just as a brief sort of a sequitur, so folks understand, you went looking for your own son for something to do and have that opportunity. And sailing and autism have sort of a connection in terms of what it helps with the spectrum and the mind and the rest of it. Just kind of give us a brief, sort of yeoman's understanding of what it is that why the marriage is so good.
Right. So you're right. I looked when I moved back to Charleston 8 years ago to get a program for my son Daniel. He's 16 now. Wanted him, as a lifelong sailor, I wanted him to be able to participate in a sport that was important to me and to my family. And we just came up short. We didn't find anyone that was willing to bring him in. They didn't have the right resources or staff. And so we just started that program here in Charleston. Since then, it's grown. You and I and a lot of the viewers here today spend a lot of their time and resources on being on the water. We find it important, right? It's calming, it's soothing. How many people pay for beach vacations and all of that? Most people are drawn to the water, and our autistic kids are really no different. So it's very soothing for them. I have kids that are having a real hard time in the classroom. They get out on the water, they leave the dock, and instantly they're like a different person. So being on the water is very soothing for them. It kind of calms them. And I think that's true for a lot of people. And I'm grateful that we have an opportunity to include these kids in the kind of programming that we do.
Yeah, you're in your 5th year. Am I mistaken on that?
This is our 4th full year of travel. Yep.
I think I talked to you at the beginning. So,
Correct.
Have you learned anything different that you might have not thought when you started? I got to believe there's got to be some breakthroughs just in maybe even in programming.
Sure. Yeah. So we've adjusted our program a little bit to make sure that, we can make it as inclusive as possible. We've also done some really unique things. This year, we rolled out our own online training program. We partnered with a company in Chicago called Aspiritech. And Aspiritech is really unique. And it's important to me that they employ neurodiverse young adults and train them in IT. So all of our online training was built by autistic adults, which I think is fantastic. But now we have, some training for our volunteers and our staff that goes from what is autism all the way to what to expect at a day at camp. So that's something we didn't have in the beginning, right? We kind of winged it with our volunteers, and I had to kind of coach them up. Now we have a real formal training program to help make sure that they're in the best place they can be to volunteer and work with our kids. We've also partnered with George Washington University. I have a doctoral student who's worked with me for the last 2 years and is doing her dissertation work on the impact social emotional learning, self-esteem, those types of things through our camps. And she's going to publish that here this year. So there's a lot of things that we're learning. We're bringing in people from other space, not just sailors, people from education, people from OT, PT, other people that can come in and help us tweak what we do to make sure that we're really at the forefront of providing autism services.
Now, I don't know how to quite ask that question. There's different levels of autistic children and autistic adults.
Correct.
If I'm a parent, how do I determine what's good for my child, whether I can get into the program? And then the second question is, talk about the kinds of boats that are used, because I think that's important for them to understand. They're not getting in a 50-footer or a dinghy, or they're going to get. So just talk a little bit about maybe the qualifications and the sort of the safety factors of what would be available to somebody if they came to one of the camps.
Right. So autism truly is a spectrum, right? Every kid is different, which is what's challenging, but also exciting for us. So we get to work with 250 unique kids throughout the year, which is really fun. But each kid then brings their own sort of challenges and whatnot to the equation. And we have to make sure that our program accommodates for that. So you're right. We use different boats than what you would use in a typical, learn to sail program. Ours is similar more to like an adult program. So we use keel boats, Like in Chicago, we use Rhodes 19s. This year, we're adding a program at Jackson Park, and we're partnering with Chicago Park District to use their J22s. We've used J80s. We just did a program in Lakewood on RS21s. So we're really looking for keel boats with large cockpits that give the kids a real chance to sit and work together as a team.
Right.
Part of what we're building, I don't really care as much if they learn to race or to make the boat go fast, but they're really learning to work together as a team on the boat. So somebody is driving, somebody's on the main, somebody's on the jib. And those are things you can't do in an opti, right? Also, because of safety, we like to have boats that don't tip over. Water safety is a huge piece for us. Drowning is the #1 cause of death in autistic youth. And we really push water safety hard, whether it's life jackets or walking together on the dock, all those types of things and those skills. We push pretty hard in our group, and we kind of stack the deck by using the right kinds of boats and the right kind of safety tools. So every kid, you asked about the spectrum and who could participate. We've had kids that are driving to the telltales after the second day, and we have some kids who just showing up and participating 3 days in a row is a massive victory. So success is measured different for each kid. For the most part, we've had nonverbal kids. We have kids I have to physically get in and out of boats. We can accommodate most kids for the most part. If they have really advanced medical needs, we don't have nurses on staff or physicians at camp. So if there's something along those lines that may be out of our wheelhouse, but for the most part, almost any kid can participate in our program.
It's safe.
Very safe.
That's an important. If I'm a conservative mom or dad sitting at home, I've witnessed a little bit of it, and it's an unbelievable program. Right below your name is the website. So let's make sure that you have Houston coming up the 11th to 12th and 13th of April.
No, we just wrapped up.
Oh, that's right. You just wrapped that up. My mistake.
Last week.
I guess you're coming back to Toledo the June 3rd and 4th and 5th. So we're good.
Starting in June, we start our Midwest swing. So we'll be in Chicago this year. We'll be in Toledo first in June. Then we skip a week and we have 2 camps in Chicago. We've doubled our footprint. So we'll have 40 kids sail with us. We'll be back at Corinthian Yacht Club, as well as adding Jackson Park as a second location in Chicago. From there, we are adding a new camp in the Detroit area. We'll be at Community Sailing School Foundation at the Pontiac Yacht Club. Be in Boston this year, and then we'll be back in Macatawa Bay. So we'll have a number of Great Lakes camps coming up, and we're excited to come back. It's a great place to be in the summer.
And you said the best part of all, it's free.
All of our programming is free for our families. We don't burden them filling out scholarships, anything like that. They all have an opportunity to participate for free. Now, as well as I do, sailing is not inexpensive and isn't free. So we can really only do that by support from people in the sailing community, autism community, and really the community at large. So we're always open to bringing on corporations, businesses, people, foundations, anyone that's interested in supporting our mission. We're happy to have you get on board.
Okay. Well, listen, I appreciate you checking in. We'll with one of the camps, I think we're going to come out this year. We haven't had the chance to do that, but hopefully, if the schedule looks right, we can spend a day and maybe do a feature on one of the kids or a couple of the kids. And
sure, we'd love to have you, Greg. Come on out.
Appreciate your time, Scott.
Thank you.
At the U.S. Center for Safe Sport, ending abuse is not just our job, it's our promise.
Welcome back. We're getting a chance to spend a few minutes with Trey Sheehan, who was just honored as the ILYA Sailor of the Year, and well-deserved, and certainly one of our favorite sailors in the Midwest, if not around the country. And congratulations, and I guess it comes as an honor to you.
I think so. It's one of those things that if you're around long enough and you do enough events, I think you're going to get some recognition. And this was maybe our year, and we were at it pretty hard and had a good year. So it's been a fun season, and I think it was one of those opportunities also to get to meet some of the folks that have been supporting us over the years. Interlake Yachting Association has done a great job, and their Yachtsman's Fund was very, very good to my kids over the years. So it's a little bit of recognition and giving back and that kind of thing. So
You had a very successful 2024. Does that make it a little more like I gotta get back at 2025 and maybe push a bigger push?
yeah, you hope so. We gave it a pretty good run in 24, so I'm gonna, I've spending a little bit more time working and getting things ready. I've got a daughter getting married in September, so we're working around a wedding as well. So, you get all that fun stuff going on, and it makes it for a very, very busy summer. So we had a very busy winter, and I think the lakes now are going to be good to us, so we can relax a little bit.
I'm assuming your daughter knows that she's one and not 1A as far as the boat goes, right?
That's exactly right. And I'm blessed. I had all three kids on board for a North American Championship in the Tartan 10 a couple years ago, and it was fortunate because I will never have an experience with all three kids like that. And everything fell together just beautifully. Now they're adults and have their own lives, and time for dad is harder and harder to find, as I remember. So
Yeah.
it was great.
I got a simple question. You have a Tartan 10 that's been rebuilt. That's one of the best Tartan 10s in the Midwest. You obviously have a Melgus 32, and you got a 52,
Yep.
Great Lakes 52.
2001.
Is there a boat you like better than the one over the other, or is it just one of those? I get to change. One day I drive a Porsche, the next day I drive my Lamborghini.
Yeah, well, I don't have either of those. So my Lamborghini is maybe the Melgus 32. I really enjoy sailing the 32. We just had an opportunity to go sail down in Charleston, and it was fabulous. Wonderful time. Great conditions down there in Charleston, and the boat always, always performs beautifully. And we did a nice job of putting the boat together, and great racing. Didn't come out exactly the way we wanted it to, but great fun, great friends down there, and we had a wonderful week. I think the 32 is probably maybe the I don't know, go-to mount, but it's all the four boats that we've kind of competed in over the last couple of years. I would say the 32 is maybe the most fun boat to just get in and go. Technical, you probably got to say the J70 because these guys are just killers. Every one of them is fabulous. The 52 is fabulous, and I'm fortunate to have a fabulous partner in that boat. The Tartan 10 is, old school, knock them around. So,
Is there any boat you're afraid of? Is that 52 sometimes give you cause, or maybe approach it a little more conservatively?
there was a point crossing the Gulf Stream this past fall. It's called the Sailor's Choice, and a lot of the boats had bailed out, and I realized that the boat is at that point 12 or well, what is it? Boat is 18 years old, and I was thinking, these are some pretty sporty conditions. But no, the boat is a little more forgiving than the 32. It'll take a little bit more of the loads that are thrown at it. The 32 is a little bit overpowered, and so we find that boat needs maybe a lot more attention.
Having spent some time in the Bronco seat last summer for the first time on a couple different 52s, including the Queen's Cup, where the storm was unbelievable. Fortunately, we had Skip Diebel aboard, and if it wasn't for him, I'm not sure I wouldn't have wet my pants more than I did. But when you sit at
Well,
the back
Skip's
of
one
that
of the
boat,
best.
well,
Yeah,
when you sit at the back of that boat and you're going back and forth just trying to hang on so you don't die, you start to no, you really understand
I
just
do.
the power in the opportunities, good and bad.
Yeah, yeah.
And
And that boat is long enough that if you are sitting in the rail in the very back seats, it's like a Bronco. I mean, you are definitely feeling like you've been through a circus or something. It is quite amazing. Our first regatta with the 52, we went 20 to 27 knots upwind the entire way, 350 miles to Eleuthera. And after a period of time, it's always nice to be sitting last in the rail on most boats. This boat, the center of effort is so far forward that you're literally on a teeter-totter or seesaw at the very back there, and you're being shot right up into the bottom lifeline every time we were launching off these waves.
last question. And I said this, I've asked this question a couple times.
Last question. This does not sound like you.
Last question. Where does the competitive spirit start and the mask of frivolity that you sometimes use? You're a really competitive guy, but then I see you race and it's like two different people. I know you have like to have fun and the rest of it, but you really are a killer. And I don't say that lightly. I sometimes I don't think you want people to know how good you are as a sailor. I know you've got a great crew, and I'm not trying to blow smoke up your nose. I just know how good. I know what other people talk about you as a sailor, and I sometimes you're self-effacing about that.
Yeah. I've got some really good guys around me. The guy who sits to my right all the time says, "You can be nice at the bar. Let's not make any friends on the water." And I have to remember sometimes because, when we're out there, we're there to, take some chances and do real well. And sometimes there is that line that I am not great at stepping over, and it's tough. It's because these guys are also friends. This is social for me. I'm not getting paid. I don't know anybody that's getting rich off of sailing. It doesn't happen that way. And for me, this is my downtime. So I'd rather have a great time all the time. And but we are pretty competitive, and we don't go out there for second. That's not why we're ever on a starting line. It's a little bit different. We have to manage our expectations with the 52 fleet because it's a pretty rock star program. But every time we leave the dock, we're expecting that we have a good chance to win.
I'm going over the friendship line a little bit here of being the professional interviewer, and I say that because if you become the IOA Sailor of the Year, I'm not sure you completely understand how good you are. So maybe I am blowing smoke a little bit. You're a terrific guy, and I appreciate all the stuff that you've done for sailing. And I think sailing's given back a little bit to give you an award, and I think sometimes that's important for you to understand as well. So if I've been a little bit personal, I apologize, but
Not at all. Not at all. I've been very fortunate too. I'm lucky to have some really terrific people around me, and I've had the opportunity to do some wonderful things. So, I think again, if you're in the right place at the right time long enough, good things are coming, and we've been fortunate that way.
good. We expect big things in the 52 fleet this year.
Yeah.
It's gonna be fun to watch, and I think with some of the Corinthian guys, the fleet's getting bigger and better. Later in this show, we're going to have Paul Goodison on, who's going to be a part of that fleet this summer on the Heartbreaker with Bob Hughes. That'll be an interesting conversation if you get a chance to listen to it.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah, it is. I think it'll be insightful, and I think it'll be certainly informative. But we watched you a little around the Lake Michigan Islands as you were kind of putting a press last year, the Chicago to Mac race. It was fun to watch on the little map that everybody sort of watches.
We got an Ultramac coming up this year. We're going to do I guess it's 545 miles?
537.
537?
Yeah, 537. They just announced
Hopefully we only do 537 or close to it.
Yeah. Let's hope for good wins. Trey, as always, congratulations on this award. Well deserved. And as always, I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Can't tell you much how I appreciate Paul Goodison coming aboard and having a conversation with us, along with Scott Herman and Trey Sheehan. We will try to get away starting next week, get a little bit away from the Zoom interviews and give us a little bit more live. We're going to bring you a number of stories this year. I think that'll be pretty interesting. We're going to follow some of the 52s, much like Inside Baseball does with some of the HBO 30 for 30. We're going to try and give you an inside look on that. We'll get Wally back next week to talk a little bit about sails and sailcloth and the amalgamation of all the sail companies with North now with Quantum and everybody kind of working together. I think that'll be an interesting story. And we're going to try and do a little bit of a, travel log is the only word I can think of, but we're going to spend some time getting away from the Zoom interviews. Although this first three shows, we've had a chance to have Maggie Shea, Olympic sailor. We had Charlie Enright after he was announced as the U.S. Sailing CEO, and And we want to thank Paul for coming back to the GL52 fleet here in this summer. It'll be fun to have a conversation with him. So for all the folks in back, we will try to bring you a little more live action starting next week. And appreciate you watching. Have a great week.